My name is Mark Kilens. I'm Vice President of Content and Community at Drift. Drift is the leading conversational marketing platform. We help businesses start conversations with people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we do that using both chat, bots, email, video, an automation product. And that's a little bit about me. I'm on the marketing team at Drift, doing all things content and community.
Yeah, can you tell us what a VP of content and community does on a sort of
I
like
ser-
day-to-day basis?
yeah, sure, Jeremy. Yeah, sure. I serve three functions at Drift, three different kind of groups that are part of the overall customer experience. One group is marketing. So I work closely with the two other marketing leaders, Dave Gerhardt, Kate Adams, in helping them generate content, building and growing a community that's going to help with brand awareness, demand generation, pipeline creation. I serve Josh Allen, who is our sales leader, our chief revenue officer, who is looking to me to help his sales team sell Drift. And that's definitely turning all that pipeline into real revenue, sales enablement. And we could talk more about like the types of content we use at these different points. But then the third group I serve is customer success. So I actually, and my team is responsible for making sure that the customer success folks, the people helping our customers adopt Drift, get successful using Drift and conversational marketing and sales, have the content they need, and also the community, like growing this network of people that know how to use Drift, that want to know how to use Drift, that are becoming conversational marketing experts. And that's a really important piece to the whole equation as well.
Yeah, so you seem like you're at the intersection of a lot of different areas.
Yeah, we really are trying to use um, a consistent, um, I would say not a consistent, I'd say we're trying to make sure our content strategy and the way we present our messaging and present content to folks across the entire customer experience is very much aligned and consistent. So I oversee the overall content strategy for the business, which is different than some other types of businesses that you might be familiar with, right? You might have someone on marketing doing content, someone in sales doing content, people in customer success doing content,
Yep.
and they might not be working very well together. And that creates kind of a disjointed experience, both on the messaging side, the content quality side, when do you serve up the content, all those different things. So we're taking a different approach because we really believe that customer experiences are the most important thing to focus on as a business these days. So to do that, you need to use both content and conversations now to help people buy and then help people become really successful with whatever you just sold them.
That's quite interesting. So how do you go about doing that, content strategy and having those three stakeholders, communicating? How does that work? Do people from marketing say, "Hey, we'd like this piece of content," or yeah, take us through how that works. How did you guys organize yourself, and maybe the pros and cons of this approach from your personal experience?
Sure. So number one, you have to start with like the goals. So like, what are you trying to do with content? There's a lot of different goals, but if you bucket the goals into kind of three or four overall goals, you would say there's a brand awareness goal. We're trying to grow Drift's brand. We're trying to also grow the conversational marketing and conversational sales categories. Those are really important.
Yeah.
Then you have demand generation, right? Which is, the funnel where you're looking at everything from once they become aware of your business, you turn them into a lead or an interested person. And then how do you get them through that journey to becoming a customer? So that's traditional marketing funnel. So how do you create content to serve those different stages of the marketing funnel? And I can get into specifics around that. Then you have customer adoption, especially in a SaaS business. You
Mhm.
have to help your customers adopt the product. And those first 30, 60, up to maybe 90 days are so critical. I was on the customer success team in HubSpot for 4 years, 4.5, actually 5 years. And I saw firsthand how important that is. And now more than ever, people want to self-service, right? They don't always need to talk to someone or even want to talk to someone to be able to find an answer to a problem or to be able to understand how to do something just better, and learn how to get more value from your product. They want to do that on their own. So you need to have a content strategy to really empower them to educate themselves. And then finally, it's not only just adoption, you have to retain them, right? So there's a retention component to all this. How do you continue to add more value to your customers using content that will give them new ideas? Not only help them answer their questions, but actually inspire them, give them new ideas. So I think of it as like top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, and then expansion. And that expansion piece is where you start to get really interesting economics in terms of those customers who are seeing a lot of success start to refer other customers, and you start to create a viral loop back into your top of your funnel. And then we break it down, by your standard types of personas and people who are part of the buying process and part of using your product as well. So that's a whole nother way we look at the content as well. At the end of the day, it's just how can you get as close as you can to your customers and buyers, understand what's going on in their heads, how you're helping them solve a specific problem, or make something better, and really using that as your catalyst, your starting off point, to then create like a holistic strategy for your content that again spans the entire customer lifecycle.
Yeah, I think I got now a good understanding of the entire sort of like pipeline. Now, if I'm in sales and I'm working with you, how does that actually work in terms of communication?
You're talking about like sales leaders, managers. What do you mean by?
Well, more or less, who's actually initiating the new piece of content? Is that coming from your group? Does that come from the sales having an idea? Does that come from marketing having an idea? How do you guys organize yourself?
Yeah, all the above. I mean, we take in feedback from everyone, right? From starting with the customers and potential customers, the buyers. Then we talk to sales teams. I just listened to 2 actually customer calls on the way into work this morning. I spent an hour listening to calls with our customer success team, trying to understand again more and more about our customers. I listened to sales calls. I joined sales calls. I listen to what people in the market are saying as it relates to them engaging with our bots and live chat conversations. Like, it comes from all these different sources. And I think you need to have a balance of like your point of view as a business. Like what is your message or category, if you built a category that you're trying to grow, right? You're trying to get people to understand this new way of thinking. There's like a before and after, right? Before it was like this, after it's like this. So, and you could do that even if you haven't built like, say, a brand new category. You're trying to reposition something in someone's mind within an existing category, right? Maybe you're tacking on to a category. You're creating a more niche category, right? Maybe you're doing it from a vertical standpoint, but you have to kind of have a storyline. And then you have to understand what's going on in your buyers and customers' minds now. How do you speak to that? So for our case, they're trying to generate leads and sales. So they're getting all these people to their website, but they're missing out on something. They're missing out on having conversations with these people that are coming to their website. So we're going to say, look, we're going to help you understand more and more now how to get people to your website. And we'll talk about that and write about that. But then what we're really going to do is reposition what you should be doing with those people that are on your website. And that's where conversational marketing comes into play. Like, that's how you should actually start thinking about using Drift to accelerate or help support the goals you have. So again, it's like, it's our point of view, but then it's also their point of view. It's combining those together, and the great content marketers and the great people that are creating content, I think, use people in their content. Like, use the people that are actually seeing success, right? Using your customers, making it so that your successful customers are the heroes that you can now envision yourself as that person. Oh yeah, that person's a marketing director or a CMO. I'm a CMO or a marketing director. I can make that instant connection to say, yes, if that person is doing that and they're in a similar situation than I'm in, I need to be doing this as well, or I need to at least look into it.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're really immersing yourself into all different parts of the business or the component that interact with the customer. Yeah.
You have to. I mean, you have to do, I even talk to product a ton. It's like, it's the intersection, right? I think marketing now lives in the intersection of sales, customer success, and product, right? It's a Venn diagram. If you put marketing in the middle of that Venn diagram, you are responsible for helping your company build a brand, right? Build an enduring brand. You're responsible for growing revenue, right? Mm-hmm. You have to do that. And you're responsible for helping the company go to market with new products.
Yeah, I assume that when I'm thinking, then I do see the advantage, like the consistency, the ability to have a broad view of the entire funnel. What do you think? Why do you think other companies still do it like siloed and isolated? Is there any advantage in doing that you guys can't really, benefit from?
There's probably some reasons why it's better for some companies, but again, I would flip it and say, how do you build your marketing and sales funnel, and even furthermore, the entire customer experience with the customer's goals in mind first, then match those customer goals with your goals. They should ideally match, right? If you found product market fit, then you're going to have alignment between what your customer is trying to do and why they would buy your product and how they're going to
Yeah.
feel success and see success with your product with what your goals are. So then if there's alignment and there's true fit, how do you actually start by building your content strategy and your overall brand experience from their point of view? So that requires you to rethink how you have your organization set up. There's actually I'm blanking on the name now, but there's a organizational principle that basically says the way you design your organization dictates the customer experience, like from a
Oh, I
people
love that.
standpoint.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
think it's maybe Conway's law. I can't remember the exact law. There's a law that states that. So if you have your organization designed in a way that's very like kind of segmented or siloed, or like, you're passing things from one department to another, and there's not this holistic approach to these really important things like content, then it's going to feel disjointed to your
Yep.
customers. So yeah, I just think it's something that I think is going to change over the next 5 to 10 years in big ways. I think the content, person, leader, she or he at a business is going to be empowered to create content that serves all the core functions, and they should think about how to actually build content by including as many people where it makes sense from both the employees at the business and the customers in the content creation process. Like that is something that I think a lot of marketers and content folks still don't do well enough, where they're not including all these people that have so much more knowledge, such deeper
That's
knowledge,
right.
way more domain expertise, right, in the content process. And if you do that, you're going to get better content, you'll get more content, and you actually don't have to all try to do it yourself by creating all the content, and that's just a smarter way to do it.
Yeah. So do you have any tips for someone who is, in that sort of like siloed, structured, and then try to effectively migrate to a more like streamlined and holistic view that you currently guys have?
The first thing I would go to or look at is like, how does your business generate revenue today? And like, how is your content helping your business generate revenue? And then I would go on the
Nice.
retention side, because like that's the, if
Of
you can,
course.
you know what I mean, like if you can help
Totally.
change that, and like say like, look, I want to make sure our content is super aligned from when someone starts to become aware of us and then they become a customer. I would focus on that, and then I would say like, look, we're not doing a good job, or we don't actually have any real content to help our customers after they become a customer. And you don't have to be a SaaS business, and
That's right.
to have content for your customers. It
Mm-hmm.
could be any type of business, right, that helps your customers at some key parts of their customer life cycle understand how you're helping them, understand a new product, right? Again, that's one of marketing's responsibilities, going to market with a new product, why that product's important, how to use it, what other customers are doing with that product. And that goes to another point. I think if you start to try to make this transition from like a sales, partner with your sales team, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's
Yep.
the revenue piece, partner with your sales team. Then it's like, well, how much are you using examples in your content? I think examples are super important, because again, people want to see what other people are doing. Think about word of
Mm-hmm.
mouth. Think
Yeah.
about review sites. Think about when you're in your like actual like non-business life, you use examples all the time. You're getting reviews from restaurants, hotels, products you want to buy. Fine, it's a review, but it's also an example of someone using that product, saying it in their own words, right? So like customer stories and examples, which I believe are different than a case study, which is more of a formal way to kind of document the success of a company deploying a solution, are super important, especially when you're selling to a lot of different types of buyers as part of maybe a buying committee.
Okay. So that's tip number one. Do you have other tips?
For what specifically?
Yeah, for that marketing person that is siloed and then trying to effectively put that, consistency across every department and work with all those departments?
Yeah, I think you got to make sure you can measure this. So like, how do you measure your content? Like my goals are the same as Kate Adams' goals, right? So like
Yeah,
that's number one.
how do you guys actually do that? Because I presume there may be some, not friction, but then there is some blurriness that comes from effectively working across all different departments. It's like, do you guys use MQL, SQL, for marketing leads qualified and sales lead
We've
qualified or
changed our
not?
funnel to be much more buyer centric. So just looking at
Mm-hmm.
our marketing funnel, it's like interested people, which is traditionally known as like a marketing qualified lead or marketing
Yeah,
qualified
exactly.
account.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have scheduled conversations, which
Mm-hmm.
is like known as a demo or meeting, but we call it interested people scheduled conversations.
All right.
Then we have potential customers, which are opportunities, and then
Mm-hmm.
we have customers, right? And we're always looking to like reevaluate that and figure out how we can make it more effective. But Kate has changed the way we think about our funnel to make it about the buyer and not about these inanimate objects like MQL or SQL. So my goals are like to support that funnel with content from a tofu, mofu, bofu standpoint, right? And then it's looking at how is our content helping retain more of our customers or make them more successful. So we're looking at data now on a continuous basis as part of our reporting engines to understand how does something like Drift Insider, for example, which is our free content subscription that you
Mm-hmm.
can sign up for, how does the content in Drift Insider and its members, how is it helping them down their journey of becoming conversationally marketing proficient and then becoming a master at it?
Got it.
And we look at it that way. So I think though it all starts with like marketing and sales, because if you create content that is helping turn the right buyers into the right types of customers, then theoretically you should just pull that throughout the whole life cycle, still continue to pay attention to what customers are needing and asking for, and pull that through to all the way to the customer support team when they're helping people with one-off questions and interactions, at that point. So for me, it's more about making sure you're measuring the effectiveness of your content as carefully as you can be and making sure your goals are aligned with these other stakeholders you're serving. Because if you're serving marketing, sales, and customer success leaders and they're serving the customer, then you all are just serving the customer with the best possible content.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So, do you have any example of metrics that you guys use internally for measuring the success of that initiative?
Well, yeah, just how much traffic is the content helping generate to the website. So like all the way down your SEO stack, like all the core SEO metrics, right? Number of emails captured, types of emails captured, or do they
Right.
fit into our ideal customer profile? What is the quality of that email captured, right? That gets into your MQL, SQL, aka interested people definition. How is content helping generate or turn someone from just an interested person into someone who actually wants to get a demo of Drift or learn more about conversational marketing? So like, yeah, we look at it all the way down, and we use a tool called Visible to help us look at the attribution, first converted, last touch, right before the
Nice.
demo's booked. There's a couple of different models we look at to see what channels and what sources are actually generating those conversion points.
Yeah, I guess, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but you must have like a lot of conversation with sales as to, well, sales will say, that's great, we got lots of demos booked, but they are not really the type of, people we want to do demo to. How do you guys, got aligned onto the same, definition of what prospects you actually become, book a meeting with the salespeople?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the customers that are successful, right? Like this is when you start to become like, product market fit. You're like, oh, these customers are seeing success. So what do they look like? Well, they use these different tools. They're at these size businesses. So I think using your ideal customer profile and then starting to figure out your target account list using attributes from successful customers, right? Like that's the step one, right? And then
That's right.
step two, right? Like you have to, like that's the way to do it. And then
Mm-hmm.
step two is like just talking to sales, listening to calls, right? Like, well, we need to make sure we get this type of information in the sales process. So we use a process, and I'm not 100% familiar with it, but it's called MEDIC. It's
Oh,
like
what's
6
that?
acronyms. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like economic buyer is one of them, right?
Do I need to Google it, or are you going to be able to put up a definition?
No, you have to Google it. It's literally 6 or 7 things, and the
Damn
whole
it.
sales team is being trained on it. But like,
All right.
Getting back to your
Okay.
question about like how do we make sure we're passing over the right leads,
Yeah, exactly.
it's looking at your close rates, right? It's like looking at like here, like, and having that feedback loop quickly. So you're saying, well, here are the people that turn into
And that's
pipeline.
fine. And Mark, people will tell you that's great, but how do I know this is not my closer that are actually not good? Because now you're sort of like merging the two departments, and that makes it like more complicated for me. As a sort of like higher up in the hierarchy. Do I know that my sale is doing a good business, is doing a good job, or is it my marketing? Do you see what I mean? It's like that may actually blur the thing. Like if you're not able to close, is it because the leads were not correct or because the sales were not good enough in terms of skills?
Well, I think that's goes back to the age old question around how do you have your sales process designed? How are you
Yeah.
measuring your sales reps? Right? Like that's like not I mean, it's definitely a marketing thing as well, but like if you're not using benchmarks, number one, to understand where you compare against your top, top 10%, top 25% peers, that's a mistake. Number two, you must have a sales process defined.
That's
Like
right.
you need to
Yeah,
have this many touches in this much time. You need to record this many qualified activities, right? We call it sales math. So what does your sales math look like? And then at what point in the sales process would you see a bad or are seeing a bad conversion rate? Is it from first meeting to second meeting, first meeting to pipeline created to closing? Like where's it breaking down? And is marketing contributing to that at all? And if so, how can we fix that? Or is it really just a mechanic of there's something wrong with how we're selling and we need to change our messaging, which goes back to content? So then the marketing team needs to get involved. I think, if your marketing team and sales team don't talk like almost every day, like minimum, like multiple times a week, then you're doing something wrong. Like we have a daily stand up now, or our marketing and sales teams meet every single day at 9 o'clock in the morning to talk about our lead SLAs, to talk about how are the leads that we're creating and generating and nurturing for sales, how are they like working and looking, and how's the sales team feel about them, looking at key performance indicators to tell us leading indicators of like these are going to be quality customers, and here's why. So I think it's just a matter of like figuring out your communication process and your lead introduction. I'm not going to call it a handover, but like how do you introduce a lead to the sales team, and how does marketing get more involved in the sales process? Because I think to your point, Jeremy, marketing is getting way more involved in the sales process further down, especially when you
that's
talk
right.
about target accounts and account-based marketing and named accounts. But then sales is getting more involved in the marketing process because you want to have
True.
more and more conversations with buyers sooner,
Yeah.
so you can help them buy when they're ready to buy, instead of like making them go through this made-up process that you created to appease your I don't know, your marketing and sales motion of yesterday. So I think it's just a collaboration, and if you're not talking to one another on a regular basis, you're missing out on a ton of like insights.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and also, you mentioned basically they have multiple touches in sales, so you can see if it's fading early on or later on. That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I think behavioral lead scores too are very important, right? Like what creates a higher quality lead than a lower quality lead? Like, so again, you're looking at the close rates, the win rates, the close loss reasons, and you're using that information to say, well, if these people get this, you respond to an email, or request this type of offer, they have a 50% higher chance of turning into a customer. So great, like let's use that to create behavioral lead score, so we can help the sales team prioritize what leads they reach out to. I think you have to help your sales team prioritize what they should reach out to and why, and enable them with the right content or messaging, or enable them with understanding, here's the content that lead converted on, so here's what you should maybe follow up with, because this is the
Oh,
last
that's
point of
cool.
conversion, right? So you have to do all of that as it relates to the intent and behaviors your leads are actually demonstrating as well.
That's super cool. Just help us to understand the sales are mostly outbound focused. I mean, outbound within your pool of users, or is
It's
that
yeah,
it's both? Okay, so
it's
they're
both.
also inbound, like people requesting demo for them.
Mm-hmm.
How do you actually filter that? When people are requesting a demo, it's just like, hey, not quite worth the involving a salesperson at this stage. How do you guys sort of like filter or play with that?
I mean, we'll no. If someone wants to talk to us, we're going to talk to them.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
like, yeah. I mean, it's. The only way we wouldn't is if it's like, we call them very small businesses.
Yes, that's what I
Um,
meant.
and like we have but that's where like, bots, like the bots can have a conversation with someone and say like, look, hey, you're a great fit for this product. Check out this demo. You can actually basically you have self-service. You can buy this on your own. No need to talk to us. Here you go. Right. So you give them another path to actually get to their desired outcome, which is to maybe learn more about your product or buy something.
Yep.
But that's where video comes in, right? That's again, more content that goes into a whole different path you're recommending they go down. But for everyone else, if you have, like, for us, it's more than 30 employees. If you have a business that has more than 30 employees, we're going to want to talk to you.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I got potential different things. But let's do a small digression and maybe something we should have visited. So, but help us understand what the range, of your customers. Like you mentioned, like very small businesses, probably also enterprise businesses. Is there any? Do you serve like everyone, or is there like one specific segment that you're trying to focus more attention to?
Well, that's where I think you as a business should identify. So it goes like this. It goes like target market, your total addressable market, which is
Yep.
probably pretty big, or it's decently big, right? It should be ideally, unless you're very niche. Then within that total addressable market, you have, I'm not saying like tens of millions. I'm saying like 500,000, right?
Sure,
Could be your
sure.
total
Yeah,
addressable
yeah.
market, right? Like, especially with the interest
SMB,
today.
for example, it's good.
Yeah, yeah,
Good
like total
target.
addressable market though is like anyone who's trying to like, think about it for us. Anyone who's trying to generate demand and turn someone into a customer could be our total addressable market, right? It probably is. That's like every business in the world almost, right? So like, all right, let's bring that down. Let's define what we call, and what a lot of people are calling, ideal customer profile.
Right.
So that within your total addressable market, what is your ICP? And for us, that's a couple of different things. The main way we segment is based off of number of employees at a business. So it's like 100 to 10,000
Mm-hmm.
is our ideal customer profile. And then there's other attributes like their tech stack and the types of people that we're generating that make up that first pass of that lead grade. But then it's like, who do you need to actually get in front of inside of those ideal customer profiles? So then you're looking at like account personas. These types of accounts have these characteristics. And then you have your buyer personas within these account personas. And these buyer personas, for us, there's multiple personas. There's the CMO, there's the demand gen marketer, there's a salesperson, there's 3 or 4 core personas. And that's when we start to get down deeper into, all right, now I can actually create content. And now I can actually understand who I need to reach out to, why I'm trying to get in touch with them, how am I going to get in front of them from an outbound standpoint, what do they care about, what message could get their attention. Again, I think content today should be very conversational, helpful, entertaining. Sometimes, right, not all the time, but entertaining, right, based off, again, who you're selling to, and it should be very like real and genuine, right? So if you have those 5 things that make up your content, like then you're creating content for a human. You're not creating content for another business. So as long as you decide like who your ideal customer profiles are or profile is, and you start to do some persona research and start to get in the heads of your buyers, you'll then be able to say, all right, let's look at our marketing and sales process, and we can measure now, going back to what we just talked about with our goals, how effective is that content and messaging in converting people.
Let's take 1 or 2 step back and talk about branding now. You mentioned a few times that branding is important. How do you go about defining your branding, and how do you go about communicating that to your audience, and especially if you have the experience with it or not, actually change of branding, like change of positioning, business is going to a different direction.
I don't have a ton of experience with that. I have a ton of experience in building categories. I
All
helped
right,
HubSpot
let's do
build
it.
the inbound marketing
Let's do the categories then.
category, right? I help marketing category, and that's obviously a big part of your brand. I think content is critical for helping you build a category, and I think you need to have a story. You need to have a story when you build a category, and you need to kind of have the enemy as well, right? Like, the villain in the
Oh
story,
yeah, I
right?
see.
Like for us at Drift, it was no forms, right? That's the villain, like no forms, right? Like that's one of the villains we had or have used, right? With HubSpot, it was interruption. We were interrupting people, right? And people don't want to be interrupted anymore. It's like outbound marketing. Like, what? No. You want to help them, right? And help teach them things, right? So I think as you think about category creation, you have to think about how you're going to use content to, again, tell that before and after story, because it's almost always a case with before and after, right? And you have to like promise them something. Like you want to get someone to realize, man, I want to get to this promised land. So how do you help them cross the chasm to go from where they are today to where they are, wanting to be, or where you want them to be? I think it goes back to what I was saying before: customer stories, teaching people by way of what your early adopters are doing is so important. And when you're also creating a category or a brand, you, I think, more than ever have to do it in a very authentic, genuine, real way. Like you have to put yourself out there as a person or as people at this business, and not as the business on its own, right? Like that's one really important thing. And you really got to make sure that like you understand like the point of view you're trying to get across. You know what I mean? Like I think for a lot of businesses, they try to be too generic, and they don't try to they try to cater to everyone, right? Cater to everyone. Like your brand is not going to, everyone's not going to respond to your brand, right? Or to that new category. And you have to be okay with that. You have to realize that you're not going to win everyone's mind, but you're going to take the lion's share of these people's minds, because those are the types of customers you want. And now you need to inspire them to want to be part of this movement, to be part of this brand you're building, to be part of that community. And you have to inspire them to want to actually take action and further educate themselves and help you educate others about this brand or about this category. So again, I think testing messaging early on is super important. Helping people understand what they're doing today and how it can be better and different with whatever you're selling or trying to get across is important. But you have to be okay with not trying to cater to everyone. You have to take hard stances and you have to take hard lines, and that's gonna help you a lot more at the end. I mean, we focus on conversational marketing and conversational sales, right? Like those are the categories we're trying to entrench into people's minds. And again, it's like, well, you're spending all this money getting people to your website, but then when they get to your website, they can't have a conversation with you, and it's like it's empty stuff. And again, like it depends on your business's goals. Like, do you want to try to become like $1 billion business, or do you want to be just a successful business and you can then create a unique position within an existing category? Like it really depends on what you're trying to do as a business in terms of how much you want to invest in building a brand new category. I've had a lot of people ask me this question, like, well, at the end of the day, like how big do you want to get? Like, what is your like long-term goal there? Because if your long-term goal is to build a nice $10 million business, $20 million business, you don't necessarily, and probably shouldn't create a great category. You should build an awesome brand. You must build an awesome brand today. That is a table stakes. Brand is a huge differentiator, and you can do that through the stuff that we were talking about before, right? And really doing it differently than everyone else is doing it, right? Like doing it in like a very human-centric way, like making your employees be advocates of that brand, building a community around that brand, having a strong point of view, even if it's in a niche market, having that point of view is really important in that story. But a category you don't necessarily have to build these days, because it just doesn't make sense from like a long-term like goal standpoint.
What channels, do you have any preference or any view on the channels for communicating with users? Of course, your live chat on on the website, so of course that's one. But do you have like any other recommendation on channels? What's your view on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, whatever?
I think it's just like, depending on where your audience is, you have to be there and be part of those conversations and the discussion. That goes back into research, both, survey-based research and listening to your customers, one-to-one conversations, interviews, etc. I think though you need to actually build your own channel today more than ever.
Oh, wow.
Right. So yeah, I mean, look, like, so something that I built at HubSpot was HubSpot Academy. That's a huge global channel.
Yeah. Or the insider for Drift.
What's that?
Or the insider for Drift.
I was gonna say, now we're doing a Drift Insider. It's going to be bigger than HubSpot Academy. It'd be much bigger, I think. Nice. And that's going to be, it's members. Both of those things have members, right? And you've spent money and time getting people to become a member. Now you have a direct channel to them, and you can you could extend your brand and use content and community, a ton of different things within that, to get those people that much more invested in your brand, in your company, within your product, and really, really make them your true advocates and ambassadors and promoters. I think that's so important. Even if you're talking 500 people, 1,000 people, you need a couple hundred people to be sharing for you, and you need to do something really special for them. And this is where, like, I think one-to-one brand building is so important. You need to spend time, with these interactions that are like, oh man, why would I go out of my way just to do something special for that one customer? Well, that could have a huge ripple effect these days. I think more than ever, you should be going out of your way to spend time with each customer that, makes sense, and making them feel that much even better about your brand or business. So we do things like we fly people over to Hypergrowth for free. We put them up in a hotel for free. We send a lot of swag out. We try to respond to everyone.
Isn't that bribery to some extent?
I wouldn't say bribery, because they have shown intent and interest and have done things for you. And I would say it's reciprocity.
Yeah.
Reciprocity is a better way to say it. And
I used to receive some of those gifts when I was working in a previous company a long time ago. And I just received it, was super happy. And then, the sort of like CEO or whatever say, hey, did you declare that you received that as a gift? And it was just like taking strangely, it's like, oh yeah, that's true, to some extent.
Oh,
so do you have any of those problems, or like no one really blink an eye or
not in the
care
States?
about that?
We don't. No.
Yeah, that's true. That was in Europe. That's right. Okay, difference in culture here.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, we send stuff to Europe though to people. I mean, I don't know if we've never really run into that. I don't know. That's interesting.
Cool. Okay, so one more thing I'd like to quickly explore, because unfortunately we're running out of time. Also, I really enjoyed this interview. Can you tell us a little bit about how I would go about finding marketers that have the same sort of like mindset and spirit in terms of, that communication, consistency and everything you were mentioning?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, the way I think about hiring is, you hire for character, you train for skill. So like, you got to look at someone's values, like their personal principles, who they are as a person. And then, if they, so for example, if they have an always be learning mindset, if they're a curious person, if they if they feel comfortable with taking risks, if they like hard challenges, if they actually, this is another good one, are they comfortable with being uncomfortable? Right? All of these things matter a ton. And if they are, and they then also have this customer obsession, so like you have to assess that out in the process too, then you probably have found someone, based off, again, their experience and what you're looking for, that could really excel on this. So I think it's 5 or 6 core things. It's really not that much more than that. Assessing that out can take 5, 6 people, and making sure you have a really structured interview process. You have a pre for your interview. You do the interviews. You have a post debrief with those interviewers. You capture all the things you talk about. You make sure people know exactly what they're interviewing that person for, so you're not repeating the same questions over and over again. That marketer, you're not like asking her or him the same question 5 times. Like, you got to have a really good structure and engine for how you interview. But if you then focus on those things first and make the skill stuff kind of second, I think you'll find someone who can not only do the job today, but then can help you transition into this new world that you're trying to get into, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. A lot of things that you described could also be used for entrepreneur mindsets, basically.
100%, Jeremy.
So the next question I'm going to ask to you is, what type of questions do you actually ask to assess, curiosity? I like also being comfortable with uncomfortable. What do you do to make them uncomfortable? And then what's your approach to test and assess that?
Yeah, it's like, one of the questions I ask a lot of times is like, what do you think should be some of your biggest challenges in this role? Right? That's an interesting question.
I like that.
Describe to me one of your personal principles. Who taught you the principle? How does it impact you every day? Give me an example of you using it at work recently, right? That's an interesting question. I think understanding what they like to learn about, right? So like, hey, so what do you do outside of work? Like, what are you doing?
That's huge.
Honestly, I think that's really important. Super important. How do you understand your customers today? just ask that question. Like, how do you better understand your customers or your buyers today? Like, what do they do? Like, and if someone really is obsessed, they will go off and you can see the excitement in their face. You can feel their energy. Like those are my 4 or 5 standard questions. There's other ones I definitely ask, and I'm forgetting a couple right now. But like starting with just like your set of 3 or 4 questions and then going based off of what they ask you and how you're seeing them respond to things is really all you need. I think also is like you can ask situational questions. Situational questions are really good too. You know, tell me a time when you were very uncomfortable and you had a big learning moment at your job. Describe it to me in great detail, right? Like I want you to tell me a story, right? So tell me a story. Those are some also really good ones.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Did you actually, how did you learn about that? Did you actually made some mistakes in the hiring? So maybe things we can learn as well in things not to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think learning by either you win or you learn, right? And when you win, you learn too. So I think when you anytime you're doing something for the first time or the first couple of years, you're gonna continue to learn stuff. I mean, I'm still learning stuff after interviewing for 12 years now. I think it's building habits, right? And taking those lessons and applying them next time. Again, it's like that mindset of always trying to be better than you were yesterday. So if someone is like that, and if someone is eager to want to improve and want to help other people improve, they probably actually then furthermore have leadership characteristics and qualities that will be beneficial even if they don't become a true leader, because everyone in their job can be a leader.
That's
you
right.
don't need a title to be a leader. So I think I look for a lot of like leadership type qualities, along with like what you said, Jeremy, entrepreneurial type qualities as well.
Did you find that hiring for Drip was actually different than hiring from HubSpot?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you're mentioning, the hard skill can be learned later, but do you actually find that you're actually looking for the same type of people in terms of, conducting the interview, or did you have to adapt slightly for the culture?
I would say no. It was similar because like again, you don't want to hire for you don't want to hire for fit like culture. You don't want to hire for culture fit.
Oh,
You want to
okay.
you want to add, right? Like the is this a culture add? Not a culture fit. That's how you should think about it.
Interesting.
So can this person teach your team some things? Is this person going to make your culture or your team more diverse in probably a number of different ways, hopefully? Is this person going to, or does this person believe in your company's mission and purpose, right? And does this person align with your company's values? So if you think about it from like those 4 things, then it's like, well, yeah, there's definitely nuances between companies, but the foundation stays the same. And I think it's also just like what stage is the company at? And what stage is that role at? Do you need someone who can come in and start executing right away? Or can you help them and train them a little bit and get them up to speed? I think that matters a lot too.
Great comments. Mark, we're coming to an end here. I'm going to ask you to maybe recall some of the top most influential books in your career.
Let me pull up my list. Hold on.
I got one guy putting up his what's the audiobook like? Oh, Audible. Yeah, putting his Audible list and stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, just bring up what you need.
Yes, definitely. Hold on one sec. Let me find my list. I'm actually gonna pull up my Evernote too. Hold on one sec. I mean, one of my favorite books is like Start With Why. As I pull this up.
Oh yeah.
Start With Why. EntreLeadership. Dave Ramsey. EntreLeadership. That's it's like entrepreneur, but EntreLeadership.
What was good about this book?
It's servant leadership. Have you heard of servant?
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we practice here. We practice it at HubSpot. I think it's super important.
Totally.
To do. Why can I not find? Hold on one sec. There it is. Let's see. What is that book? Switch is an awesome book. Switch is amazing. Traction.
Yeah. Which traction? There's 2 tractions.
I only know of one traction.
Is it the EOS system, or is it the multiple channels to test every 3 months with the bull eye?
Traction, how any startup can achieve success.
There's
That's a
another
really good
traction about how you actually put a sort of like operating system on, in your company.
Okay, gotcha. Yep, yep. Delivering Happiness, great book.
Mm-hmm.
Hooked.
What's Hook? Never heard.
You should just be able to Google it. Hooked. If you just go to Amazon. Yeah, it's how to build habit-forming products.
Got it.
Checklist Manifesto. Brainfluence. Present Shock.
So if I ask you to take just one of all those books, which one will that be?
I think it depends on what outcome you're trying to get to. What are you trying to learn?
Damn, it's a good question.
You can't really pick one book.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's say like we were mentioning, someone who is marketer and then try to effectively just instill this consistency view on the whole company.
I think Delivering Happiness is an all-time classic now, probably at this point. That's the whole Zappos story. That's super good. Like anything from Peter Drucker, that author is really important. I would say
management, yeah, it's huge.
Anything. I don't read a ton of like fiction. I guess I read a lot of nonfiction. But yeah, I mean, I think any of those books are good. And then there was one other book though that I wanted to talk about quickly. I know we're like at time. Like the Cluetrain Manifesto. It's online. It's free. It's an awesome book. Crossing the Chasm is also an awesome book. If you really want to get into the business books, like the cloud book from Benioff, the Salesforce story, Behind the Cloud. Pretty sure it's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, all-time classic.
Yep.
Especially when you're talking about servant leadership, I think that's a good one.
100%. So cool.
All right. Awesome, Mark. If people want to know more about you or your company, what should they do?
Go to drift.com, start chatting in with someone, have a conversation with someone, right? You can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Twitter. And then I think if you just want to learn more about marketing, sales, and about building products, designing products, go to Drift Insider. It's 100% free. We have getting close to 100 classes in Drift Insider, hundreds of clips. We got some podcasts starting to go into Drift Insider. We're going to have certification soon. So check out Drift Insider. That's just drift.com/insider.
Sounds awesome. Mark, thank you so much.
Hey, you're welcome, Jeremy. Thank you. And I really enjoyed it.